Hi everybody and welcome to today's Art of Procurement podcast. I'm Philip Ideson, the founder and managing director of Art of Procurement. And today's podcast is part of a special 2-week series. It's our second annual sponsored startup and growth series, where we aim to shine a light on the early stage and growth companies who are changing the way that leading procurement teams are driving outcomes that truly align with corporate objectives. And we'll ask an entrepreneur from 7 different companies questions about what gap in the market their solution addresses, how they differentiate, and what their tools look like in action. It's a great way for you to get to know those who are leading the way. And in today's episode, I speak with Jody Rowe of Promitheia. And so I started by asking Jody to introduce herself and to introduce Promitheia.
Promitheia Procurement was formed around what I believe is a need to provide greater access to procurement templates and online advisory services. So I decided that that was where the need was, and I think it was probably heightened more during COVID, where obviously we're working remotely, people still need access to talent, and this was a great way of getting procurement out there.
Can you talk a little bit about your background, kind of for context in terms of your procurement background, to just so that listeners can get kind of a little bit of an understanding of where you came from in terms of making that decision that this is something that you wanted to focus on?
Sure. I actually started accounting like a long time ago and studied accounting and spent half of my career in mining and commercial type roles and half of my career in oil and gas and in contracts and procurement roles on LNG projects. And, when you work with some of those operators, you get quite spoilt for process and procedures and, good governance, managing risk, managing spend. And I decided to leave and go out and do my own consulting and really found a niche market for it. So I'd had all this experience at it, and our other business has been working with tier 1 oil and gas companies, but it wasn't really suiting, the full market. So I thought, right, we'll capitalize on all this experience that you have, which sadly is over 30 years now, and get out there and customize something that's a bit more fit for purpose. So, the good thing is that you do gather an enormous network throughout that time, and you can see what really works well and what doesn't. So, and that sort of really kind of built the foundation as to, well, how can I develop a procurement library that has everything that is procurement that makes it really accessible for people? And with all that experience and working with the team that I have, it was easy.
So when you talk about procurement library, what are the kind of things that are in the library? Is it documentation, forms, templates? I'd love to know just a little bit more about what it is that you've actually, the types of things that you've created.
Sure. How we've actually structured it is really at the start of the procurement process to the end. So we start off with governance, and that will include policy, procedure, the contracts and procurement framework, to sourcing, strategy, contracting strategy, their documents and forms, and a procurement category strategy plan, so making sure that we know what we're doing for the next 2 years, things of that nature, invitation to tenders, onto the contract management, everything there is to do around managing a contract management plans, and then we have a free document, as well as now we're developing people and culture, training, supply relationships, contractor performance management, and all the department KPIs and dashboards, and also a few how-tos, commercial models. So it effectively is procedure, policy, forms, guidelines, how-tos, even to the point of a contracts and procurement induction for your contracts team. In my experience, it's never done particularly well. So how do you ensure that everyone understands what they have to do and a business-wide contracts induction? Do they understand the delegation of authority? So it's really comprehensive.
So essentially, it's, you know, as a procurement professional, you think about all the policies, procedures, you know, templates from writing RFPs to, like you say, category strategies, through to contracting as well. It's essentially all in a box, and you can buy things individually as individual templates and forms, or you can look and say, look, I don't have anything at all right now. I want to hit the ground running. I can go and buy, you know, a collection, a suite of different forms, templates, governance processes, all those things to get started, rather than having to create everything from scratch.
Which is clearly a very expensive option to do. So
Yeah.
The other thing that I've noticed in certain organisations that someone will come in from one organisation, someone will come in from another, and it creates a very confusing process and procedure because they're taking bits from everywhere. You know, it's far more effective and probably more cost effective just to start with a blank piece of paper and map out exactly what is fit for purpose for your organisation, rather than trying to make, you know, a square peg, you know, go into a circle. Is that right? Something along those lines.
Yep, a round hole, we would say over here.
Yes, we would say that here too.
Yeah. I'll give you a pass. You said earlier it's 7:30 in the morning, given time zone differences. So,
Okay, thank you.
no, when you know, as you think about all these tools and templates you've created, are they industry agnostic? Are they specific for certain sectors? You know, how do you look at them from the kind of under what circumstances are they best put to use?
Well, the good thing is that we believe that they're small, medium, and large business. We also they're not the generic, so they're not specific for any industry. And again, that's not what we wanted. I actually find that
Right.
the companies that are more suitable for this is typically outside of those oil and gas and mining companies, the larger ones, because they have a lot of process and procedures. This really was about focusing on the food and processing industries, you know, a lot of those types of industries, agriculture, transport, you know, the list is endless of all the industries that this can apply to. And yeah, I think it was really about being generic and being able to approach any industry.
Yeah, and then from a maturity perspective, you say kind of the larger organizations, maybe they already have some of these policies and procedures in place, but for those who are earlier stage, maybe they're just building a procurement function for the first time, or maybe they have some kind of skeleton level of process and procedure, but they really aren't doing what you would consider best in class. That's the kind of folks who would get the most value out of the tools and the templates that you've built.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting. You can go to an organisation which don't have any procurement people. You can go to another organisation that has a couple of procurement people, but they don't understand the risk. You know, it's a real mix out there. It's a little different than going into, you know, the finance department, which mostly have the same qualifications. Procurement's not been like that. So, you know, even if they've got a process, they will find something on the website that will enhance what they've already got as well. So, you know, process maps and things like that.
And in terms of kind of geographic relevance, now I know that you're based in Australia, but the documents and the tools and the templates, are they used by global organizations? Are they somebody who's listening in the States, or somebody who's listening in the UK or South Africa or wherever it may be? They're just as relevant for them as somebody who may be listening in Australia.
Absolutely. I mean, I've worked for BG, I've worked for Rio Tinto global organisations, and wherever you go, the process is pretty much the same. Like,
Right.
I don't see it being different from country to country. So it is intended that people can buy them from anywhere they are in the world. It does it's always purchased in Australian dollars. That's just the way that it's set up. But yeah, it's not intended to be
Yeah.
Australian specific, and certainly we can support our 24 hours a day, so that's no issue on that front.
Yeah. And in terms of just one more question on the templates themselves, like what level of depth do they go into? Are we talking, 1 or 2 page documents? Are we talking about 30 to 40 page documents, or a mix of things in between?
Sure. It really does depend on which document. Like procedures typically are a lot longer. So
Yeah.
if you're looking at a contracts and procurement procedure, it's 41 pages. There is a light
Mm-hmm.
version and then there's a more comprehensive version. Hence, that's why it's priced as such. Social
Yeah.
procurement is probably 15 pages. And because some things just require a little bit more detail, and then you might get something for, 2 pages for a form, or a policy might be 3 or 4
Right.
pages.
Mm-hmm.
It really does depend on what the document is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason I asked that is because it's hard to visualize from an audio perspective what these look like. But I know I've seen some of them myself, and they go into a lot of detail. There's a lot of detail there, and there's a lot of ability to customize. And I just think that it's especially for those who are earlier in the stage in terms of their procurement maturity, it's kind of a no-brainer to look at things like this because you save so much time. Otherwise you're going to be bringing on a consultant, or you're going to be spending hours drafting it yourself. And it's just a really, really easy, quick way to get started with some infrastructure that you don't already have that is really best in class.
Oh, absolutely. And, we've started doing videos per document. So
Mm-hmm.
on LinkedIn today, there's a video of me explaining and walking through the contracts and procurement procedure. So basically, when you go online now, you can just click on that and see it, and you'll see how detailed these things are, and it's intended to be like that,
Yeah.
and to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to strip things out than what it is to add things. So,
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
watch the videos. I can only encourage people to do that.
Well, what we'll do is we'll include actually a link to some of the videos in the show notes page for today's episode. But I did just want to ask the final question: is if listeners have heard our conversation and they're thinking, I could really use some tools and templates within my procurement organization, whether it's to cover from processes all the way through to governance and everything in between, where would be the best place for them to go and take a look, find out what's available, and to connect with you if they want to do that directly?
Sure. You can go straight to the website, and there's an opportunity to connect in with me for a free consultation, and you can
Mm-hmm.
come online and just talk to me. The website will show you all the documents and the advisory, and if you do a free consultation, I'll connect you via Zoom and walk you through a few of the documents. In addition to that,
Yeah.
because we've got so much going on around new templates, new documents coming on, it's good to follow us on LinkedIn, because then you'll get the ongoing updates and you'll see the videos when they come through.
Yeah.
And you'll meet some of the advisors as well, part of the team. So definitely follow us on LinkedIn, book a consultation. I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be good. And yeah, we're more than happy to talk and understand your organisation and how we can help.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, what I'll do is I'll put again links to the video for an example, to the website, to your LinkedIn profile, as well, all in the show notes for today's episode. So for anybody who is listening today, you just go to artofprocurement.com/podcast, and you're going to find today's episode as part of the catalog there. And just check those out and reach out directly to Jody for more information. So Jody, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on our Startup and Growth series.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been very entertaining. I love it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this special Startup and Growth series. To listen to the entire series and for the show notes page that accompanies each episode, please go to artofprocurement.com/startup series. That's artofprocurement.com/startup series.